Welcome into Countdown to Kickoff as we get you set for the action. We are back from the open date as District 12 6A play continues. I'm Kurtis Quillin, joined here by the head coach of the Coppers Cove Bulldawgs, Rodney Southern, defensive coordinator Amaury Del Real, and offensive coordinator Scott Schroeder. And Coach Southern, let's start with you and I. And, well, the open date has come and gone. How did you guys address? I know you didn't take it off of practice, but you just didn't have a game to line up for.
Well, it's, everybody's kind of got their own philosophy about how you handle an open date, because kids obviously know there's no culmination at the end of the week. So what we normally do is we treat Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday like a spring training practice. You go back to the very beginning in terms of blocking and tackling and special teams. We went back to our basic rules on everything, and you want to get some kids healthy. Obviously, Craig and KJ were both kind of banged up a little bit from the week before, so you try to take advantage of that. But you also get your young kids some extra reps. We went 1s, 2s, and 3s at times to get some of those guys who don't get as many reps. And then Thursday, we went back and actually started, and you kind of sprinkle in a little bit of Harker Heights, all the way through. But Thursday and Friday were the days where you really work on Heights. And then obviously we didn't have school Friday. We brought the kids in Saturday just like a normal routine. So the open week is not as unique usually as the weekend prior to that, because we brought the kids in and you watched the previous game, which was the Bryan game. But and then, of course, we had a good practice this Monday. Being out of school, you always wonder how kids are going to handle a 3-day weekend. But I thought we had a really good one Monday and Tuesday. So hopefully they'll be ready for tonight.
Talking defensively, Coach Del Real, when you look at where your side of the ball is through 6 games, headed down this 4-game stretch, what was it that you really wanted to polish and fine-tune with them, with a week where you don't have to line up against someone in a different color?
Just going back to fundamentals and making sure that we're pushing to get better at those things, because in these last 4 games, as you mentioned, the level of talent is going to level off a little bit, or there'll be a guy here and there that's better, or we have a better guy than they do. And when that happens, then you got to go back to your training, as they say. So it was just basically focusing on us, focusing on the little things, the details of every position, and just getting ready for this week.
Almost like a self-scout at that point.
Yeah, for sure.
Coach Schroeder, same kind of question to you. And then, when you look at it, how focused are you in that process of polishing in the open week, of making sure that you are playing complementary football, not just offense and defense, but also making sure you're using the run and the pass to set each other up?
Yeah, that's a good point. But just as these guys have mentioned, for us, the off week, it's interesting because you get into the groove of the year, and each week is like a mini season because you have different schemes and different things that you prepare for. So you have to prepare the guys mentally for Friday, so you kind of lose touch a little bit with fundamentals. That's why as you build a program and you have spring balls and summers, those things build. But being new, it gives us a time to kind of go back and focus on the fundamentals. We don't have to scheme for somebody, so we can tighten those up a little bit. And it came at a later point than what we're normally used to at Huntsville, so that was good, So just like you've been said, just focus on the fundamentals, focus on us. We know now at our point what our strengths are going to be. So how do we emphasize or enhance those strengths? How do we have answers to when teams try to stop those strengths? So it's really good time to regroup and focus on us.
Coach Southern, one thing that every team last week was the largest bye week in the state. Every team in the state that was off last week had one thing in common, and that was the cold tub. How important was that for the Dogs last week?
Well, I think just sometimes rest and recovery is always good, and our trainers have done a really good job. And we got a cold tub just like everybody does, and some guys like it and some guys hate it. But and I've always been of the philosophy that, if you think it helped, it probably helped. So But they use that. We do that every Saturday morning, and some of that's just to get your blood flowing, and if you've got problems like, we had a couple guys that were just banged up. I mean, we're in week 7, but technically we're in week 10 because, the preseason and scrimmages and things like that. So the biggest thing for us, I think, was just you feel a little better, especially when you get 3 days like the kids got Friday, Saturday, Sunday off. And, what did they do? I can't tell you 100%. I wish they would have all rested and hydrated and eat right and did all those things, but they're also 17-year-old, 16-year-old kids. So, and we had some kids that had some little mini vacations too. Their parents had already planned stuff to be out of town, and you kind of have to deal with some of that in your open week. It's also something, hopefully we have to deal with during Thanksgiving break, learning how to get used to practicing during that time of the year. So you do all those things, but rehab, I mean, we've been really good. We've got a good trainer who understands, and she kind of specializes in rehab. So, for us tonight, we're as healthy as you're going to be in week 7 of the season.
There's, a palpable buzz around this team heading into this final 4-game stretch of the regular season where you guys are in full control of where you go. On the flip side, so are the 4 teams that you're playing to end the regular season. But when you see that situational piece of it, what has your message been to the guys about what's at stake, or what the opportunity is here these next 4 weeks?
Well, I think you got to be, and I learned this the hard way several years ago. You got to be very careful knowing, okay, the next 4. Well, you don't focus on the next 4. You focus on the next one, which is obviously a really good, very well coached Harker Heights team. But you've got to be. To me, you've got to be at this stage. You know what to do, and most kids know what to do. Now there are going to be mistakes. Yeah, it's football, but now at the point is the guys, and I told them this at the beginning of the week. The guys that are starters and impact guys, you got to be an impact guy now. And then we've got to have 2 or 3 guys that are not always an impact. They have to become an impact. And that's basically do your job, make a play, whatever coaching slogan you want to put with it. But the bottom line is these next 4, in most people's opinion, are 4 of the better teams in the district. And I would agree with them because we've seen 2 of them live, and we've seen them on film already, play in other teams. So, and records kind of tell you that as well. But at the same time, you better focus, especially this one tonight, you better focus on who you got now, and then Saturday morning we'll figure out what we got to do the next one.
Tonight's matchup is a joust with the Harker Heights Knights as District 12 6A play rolls on. Up next, we'll dive in to the Bulldawg offense and their matchup with the Harker Heights defense. You're listening to Countdown to Kickoff on Bulldawg Radio.
Rolling to his right. Now he's going to take off to the end zone. Bulls over one guy, and it's a Bulldawg touchdown by Hokut.
It's a Bulldawg touchdown.
Back on Countdown to Kickoff as we get you set for the action tonight. The Bulldogs on the road to continue District 12 6A play against the Harker Heights Knights. In this segment, we're going to talk about the Bulldawg offense and the Harker Heights defense. And so, Coach Southern, I'll start with you like I always do. And when you turn on the screen, what do you see with this Heights team?
Well, the first thing probably is they're very consistent in what they do. They're a true 4 down, and it'll be very obvious the 2 guys they have inside, and one of them wears 97 sometimes he's wearing 58, and he's played some on offense too, so I'm sure that's why the number change happened. But they've got 2 big defensive tackles inside that are hard to move. They've got a middle linebacker, in my opinion, is as good as we've seen. They protect him enough to let him run, but the overall, they're very, and sometimes people take offense when you say they're very simple in what they do, but they're really, really good at it. They're 3 linebackers, but there's times where there's one in the box. There's times where there's two in the box. They're going to play a couple simple things in the secondary, but they always seem to be in the right spot. They don't make a lot of mistakes. Those two big guys push the pocket from inside, which is tough on a quarterback. But they also almost force you at times to try to double both of them so they don't make the play. But they're a very solid, sound defense in what they do.
Coach Schroeder, when you look at your unit and this defense, where do you feel like the biggest opportunities for y'all to move the ball are tonight?
Well, it's going to be a challenge, like Coach said. The biggest thing is when you look at these guys is consistency, like Coach Southern said, and quality across the board. So it's a unique challenge with these kind of defenses because you know where they're going to be. They haven't changed in any game, probably in a couple years. They just line up and say, you got to be tougher than us. You got to execute at a higher level than us. You got to play harder than us, and that's hard to do on a consistent basis. So with some teams that try to take away stuff like, for example, Brian, you load the box, you have to play man on the back end. Well, that opens you up to some big pass plays if you can execute. You got teams that might say, well, we're going to protect against the pass, only rush 3, so you got to be able to run the ball. These guys are pretty consistent across the board, so you're not going to get a lot of big plays on them. You're going to have to go on 8, 10, 12-play drives, and that's hard on a high school offense to execute at that level time after time. So we've got some things, every scheme has its weakness. It's whether or not you can execute and take advantage of it. So we got a couple things that we're going to look at, and hopefully we can hang on to the football and play physical and eat some clock up, keep their offense off the field, and get field position. But I'm hoping just consistency on a high level will probably be the big thing.
Like Coach Southern said earlier, and I'm glad you kind of brought it up. When you play good teams like this, mistakes are going to happen. That's football. That's sports. How important is it when you look at what their defense has done, not even diving into the box score, just looking at final scores, 4 games of less than 21 points allowed? How important is it to limit the extra opportunities you give them? How taking care of the football?
Exactly. So they're good at stripping the ball. They're opportunistic. So again, you have to play at a high level. You have to compete at their level. But the thing about that is teams get impatient and they want that big play on them, and that's when, because they play such a soft shell coverage, they get a lot of picks because they're very athletic on the back end. You're not going to get over the top of these guys. You're not going to hit them with a ton of big plays. So you've got to maintain drives, and then you got to do the little things well. You got to execute at a high level.
And that comes back to something you kind of preached with not just one side of the ball, but the entire roster, patience.
Well, and that's hard. The first thing I told the guys that Monday we were off was, first thing we got to do is protect the ball. The games that they've been very successful in, and just like Quillin turned it over 5 times in the first quarter against them. Well, you're going to lose that game every time. The teams that didn't, Midlothian beat them 28-7. Midlothian turned the ball over once in the third quarter. I think it was the third quarter. But they drove the ball. They took their time. They were patient. It's a you would almost kind of look at it as an SEC type game where the team that runs the ball more effectively and protects it has got a better chance to win.
Up next, we'll flip it around and talk about the Bulldog defense against the Harker Heights offense as we get you set for the action. This is Countdown to Kickoff from Bulldog Radio.
Hello, Cove. I'm Dr. Brent Hawkins, Superintendent of Schools for CCISD. As you may have heard, the Board of Trustees unanimously placed on the ballot for your consideration a bond proposal for the November election. That was done at the recommendation of the district's Long-Range Facility Planning Committee that met in the late spring and early summer. On the general proposition, there are 3 schools that are being renovated and construction taken on those campuses: Fairview Jewel, Coppers Cove Junior High, and Coppers Cove High. Proposition B includes expansion of locker rooms and expansion of the district's fine arts facility. Proposition C includes a multi-sport, multi-organization, open-air pavilion to meet the needs of our students. We would like for you to continue to tune in to our district website and look at the information that we're putting up as we seek to inform you, and especially invite you to our roundtables where we can listen, learn, and get all the information that you need in order to make an informed decision in November. We appreciate your time. Thank you for your consideration. God bless, and go Dogs.
We're back on Countdown to Kickoff as we get you set for the action tonight. The Bulldogs on the road as District 12 6A play continues at Leo Buckley Stadium against the Harker Heights Knights. In this segment, we're going to talk about the Bulldog defense and the Harker Heights offense. A little bit of a different look, Coach Southern, on the offensive side. I know last year when they made the trip west, it seemed like Heights was more of a, when you and I talked off air, I equated it to more of a Briles-era Baylor or Leach-era Texas Tech, where it was run here, but we're going to live through the air, and it seems like they're maybe a little more balanced this year.
Yeah, I think they probably, as a head coach and who's been in a situation like Coach Humble's in, where your kid playing quarterback, they probably a year ago were a little more young in terms of experience, not necessarily, juniors, seniors, or any of that, because their numbers are pretty similar every year now. Because he's like most really good 6As. You got 45 to 50 seniors, and those guys are a lot more experienced. I think they're more balanced because as a coach, you don't want to have to live in shootouts. Because when you live in a shootout, normally somebody's going to get shot in the end, and it's not good. So I think he's much more confident in what they do. I think their receivers, I think their tight end, I think those guys do a good job. I think their offensive line, they're missing a guy right now, their center, and we don't know, obviously, if he's going to play tonight or not. But I think that guy has kind of been their driving force in their O-line. So obviously I hope he doesn't play tonight, but I think they're more confident in what they do, and I think his son obviously is probably a lot more confident as a 2-year guy running what they run offensively.
Well, we've already seen some key pieces return against the Dogs this year. Coach Del Real, when you look at the defensive side of it, where do you feel the biggest opportunity is against this offense?
Well, they're probably the best overall team that we've seen offensively. They got some really good receivers that they got 3 of them that could really go the distance. They got 2 running backs that could break it at any point. They have a big offensive line. Their left tackle to me is probably their best guy, just all around, because he's got the size and he plays like it. But the rest of the offensive line is still big from what we've seen. So it'll be a challenge. I think the biggest opportunity we have is to go out there and just play sound football, and our kids get another view of when you do what you're coached to do, and you stay within our defense, then you could be successful. But it's going to take all 4 quarters. It's going to take going back to your fundamentals. It's going to take running to the football. It's going to kind of like what Coach is talking about with their defense. We're going to have to play harder than them, and it's going to take all 4 quarters to do that.
You always talk about one play at a time. Mm-hmm. Don't worry about something that you did. Worry about what you're going to do moving forward. How important is it to kind of keep that the eyes toward the windshield, to keep looking toward that next play, knowing that just like our offense it is able to get big plays in instances, these teams in this district are really good, really athletic. There may be a chunk play or two.
Well, I think I've mentioned it before the Bryan game. When we got down to the end of the Killeen game, we kind of did a little flashback to the Georgetown game and not being able to get off the field, in the last 2 drives to give our offense a chance to really put the nail in the coffin. And then at the very end, not giving us the opportunity to get the ball back and, just kneel the ball. So for that Killeen game, it was one of those things where, we've got to focus on the moment now. We cannot focus on, we gave up long play on the third quarter, whatever the case may be. You just got to keep playing. I always say you got to flip the page. You got to flip the page of the book because there's something new coming, and you have to learn from those mistakes too. But you can't hone in on them. You can't live in the past. Learn from them and make the play the next time it comes to you.
Coach Southern, Coach Del Real just kind of talked about it there, but I want your perspective on how you've seen the defense grow in that regard since the home opener against Georgetown to, like he mentioned, against Bryan and Quillin.
Well, I think we've matured in terms of, for lack of a better word, trust in, what we're teaching. There are times where when you're not sure, you're going to revert back to whatever you feel most comfortable. Or a lot of times you'll hear people, when you get in a tough spot, you're going to revert back to your training, whatever your training is. Well, we had a spring with some of these guys, and then we hit the ground running in the fall. So, and some of them are in different positions. Some of them are a lot more comfortable now than they were 7 weeks ago. But you also got to have the complement between the levels. Our D-line at times, to me, has played really well, and then there's times where we haven't been as good as we probably are capable of. But you can put that on the back end. You can put that on the linebackers too. But as you mature defensively, the biggest thing, and everybody's got a little different philosophy about it, your job on defense is to take the ball away from the offense, however that is, whether it's a 3 and out and a punt or whatever. And I know we've gotten better in those areas and understanding that Coach told me to do this, do it. Don't worry about what happens when I do it, but because he's got to believe that what you told me to do is going to work in whatever the situation is. And there's times where, and you see it every Friday night, Saturday afternoon, Sunday, guys don't do the exact thing and they don't realize there's 10 other people relying on you to do that. It's just like, Tuesday morning we kicked field goals and extra points at the end of practice. And, I heard one of the coaches say to both kickers, this whole team's relying on you because you're the guy that's got to go out there and do that. And I think that's true defensively, it's true offensively, and obviously it's true in the special teams. But just running to the ball, tackling, understanding football, and that's the thing that when you come to a place and you change schemes, regardless of what you call it or how you put it in, there's got to be buy-in. And once there's buy-in, then there becomes trust, and now I can play fast because I know what to do. And I think that's where we are now. I think we're playing faster than we played in week 1 or week 3 or week 6.
Up next, final keys to a Bulldog victory as we near kickoff. This is Countdown to Kickoff from Bulldog Radio. Back on Countdown to Kickoff as we near total leather between the Copperas Cove Bulldawgs and the Harker Heights Knights in District 12 6A action. If you'd like to see the taping of this show live, join us in the boardroom every game week Tuesday at 11:30 a.m. for Southern Talk. Again, that's Southern Talk Tuesdays at 11:30 in the boardroom. And as I give you that ad read, let me notify you of a location change for next week's Southern Talk, where we will be at the district training facility. That is on the south end of Bulldawg Stadium. So join us there next week only. Final message to your side of the ball. Coach Schroeder, we'll start with you.
Well, I think you have to be at your best when your best is required. And obviously hang on to the football, but we're going to have to play extremely hard every snap. We're going to have to fight and be physical and play hard every snap. And I think, final thing is just enjoy the environment, enjoy this kind of game. This should be two good teams, and if we get this program where we're going and where we want to be, we're going to play in a lot of big games where the talent's going to be equal, and it's going to be a battle. So enjoy the battle and play hard and see what happens.
Coach Del Real, same question.
Well, first of all, have fun. Enjoy, like Coach Schroeder said, enjoy the moment. We've been lucky to be a part of some big games, and I think this is not going to be any different. And I hope the kids get to get to enjoy it. But the goal for us defensively is to try to win first, second down, and put them in a tough situation third where we can have a little fun, as we like to say on defense.
Coach Southern, your 3 keys to a Bulldog victory.
Well, I told them day one, and I think these 3 things went through the whole week. I would love to see this game start at 7 and end at 9 o'clock, because that would mean we're both running the football and we're both either 3 and outing or we're scoring a lot of touchdowns, one of the two. But this is what high school football is all about when you play in games like this, and the environment tonight will probably be really, really good. So number one thing, and I've told them this all week, protect the ball. Don't put it in their hands any more times than we have to, but protect the ball. Second thing, and we talked about this all week, is stay in the moment. And that's just my way of saying it. Everybody's got a little different philosophy, turn the page or whatever, but you got to stay in the moment, whether it's a good play or a bad play. And then the last thing is we got to win the fourth quarter. And we talk about that every Saturday morning, did we win the fourth quarter? But when I say in this situation we got to win the fourth quarter, we don't know what we're going to have to do that. But we've got to win the fourth quarter, and then you also got to understand this is a big football game, but next week will be a big one too.
Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. Good luck tonight.
Thank you.
For head coach Rodney Southern, defensive coordinator Amaury Del Real, offensive coordinator Scott Schroeder, producers Cole Witter and Matt Thompson, and superintendent Dr. Brent Hawkins, I'm Kurtis Quillin saying thanks for joining us on Countdown to Kickoff. Up next, we'll send it upstairs to the booth for the action.
Yay! Woo!